Shalom, my Israelite brothers and sisters. So first of all praises to our Elohim and to his only begotten Son, Yehoshua. So we're going to be getting into Revelation chapter 13. It's going to be a very exciting lesson, and Revelation and Daniel are my two favorite books. Now, I've been dealing with Revelation and Daniel for over 25 years. That's no joke, saints. And my passion for those two books, Daniel and Revelation, after 25 years, have not ceased one iota. My passion for these two books are just the same as today as it was 25 years ago. So it is a great honor to be able to serve the Most High. And secondly, it's an honor to be able to serve his chosen people. So we're going to cover every single verse in chapter 13. And we're going to be making some comparisons to Daniel as well too, because the book of Daniel and Revelation are pretty much one and the same. Now, with the exception of Daniel chapter 2 and 7 goes further in detail to cover the four world empires such as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and then the rise of papal Rome, which is depicted in the 10 toes and the 10 horns. Now, I said earlier that the book of Daniel and Revelation are my two favorite books, and I say this for this reason, because the whole Word of the Most High I've been passionate about for a very long time. You know, this is the same as 25 years. But because Daniel and Revelation, brothers and sisters, depict what it's going to be like in these last days, and it tells us and shows us that what's to become in these last days that we're living in. And that's something to get very excited about. And we are living in the last seconds of Earth's history. And these trumpets are getting ready to fall like crazy. Now, I truly believe that the first trumpet is partially fallen, but those other trumpets, they're going to come right after each other, and it's going to be so fast. And that's why I love the book of Daniel and Revelation, because it lets us know where we are in history. And we're definitely in those toes that are depicted in Daniel chapter 2. Those 10 toes with the iron that's trying to mix with the clay. That's us, brothers and sisters. That is us to the T. And we're going to explain that even more throughout this lesson. So we're going to be jumping back and forth throughout Daniel and Revelation, because we must make the comparison so you can understand. And I want to also say this. If you have not seen the video titled The Mother of Harlots, I would highly recommend that you watch that video, that lesson, before you watch this one, because that's going to give you a better understanding of what the 10 heads, the 7 heads, and the 10 crowns represent, and what time frame that it's talking about. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take to the scriptures and get busy. So let's go ahead and turn to Revelation chapter 13, and we're going to start at verse 1. And it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of Blasphemy." All right, so this is what I want to do, brothers and sisters. So we're going to take this a step at a time here. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the sand of the sea. "And I saw a beast rise up out of the sea." Now, in my other videos, I showed you from scriptures that the sea represents peoples, nations, tongues, and multitudes. But I'm going to prove that again here, because I've actually seen some Hebrews who teach that the sea talks about something else, but they have no scriptures to back that up. So we're going to go along with the scriptures. We're going to let the word of the Most High tell us the interpretation of what sea is. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 17, and we're going to read verse 15. "Now, mind you, this is the same beast power with the 7 heads and the 10 horns with the 10 crowns upon his head that is spoken of in Revelation chapter 13, that was the rise out of the sea, or that sitteth upon many waters." So let's read. "And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues." So the word of the Most High is clear and is giving us an interpretation of what the sea or waters represent. It represents the people, nations, multitudes, and tongues. So in other words, where this beast power is to dwell all types of different cultures of people with different languages. And even unto this day, if you do a study on pagan Rome and papal Rome, they were the same when papal Rome was just a religious state church that rose up through Constantine. So they had all types of people from around the world that lived in Rome. And that's a known fact. You can do your research and studies on that. And even still to this day, you have many different languages and people who dwell in that area. All right, let's go back to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea. Now we should all know what sea represents by now. And saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns. Now I'm going to stop right there because let's deal with the 7 heads and the 10 horns and the 10 crowns, because I want to show you that there's a connection between Daniel and Revelation chapter 17, 13, as well as chapter 12. Now let's go back over to Revelation chapter 17 and let's make the connections. So Revelation chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 9 and then 12. Verse 9, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Now let's jump down to verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So here's the connection. Revelation chapter 17, Revelation chapter 12, Revelation chapter 13, Daniel chapter 7. It's talking about the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns with the 10 crowns upon his head are all one and the same, brothers and sisters. It's talking about the same beast power that would arise out of the sea, which is papal Rome, or better known as the Vatican, which the head of the person who sits at that throne are the popes. And we're going to talk about these popes here in a little bit. I'm going to tell you how many popes there's been since the first pope unto this very pope that we have today, Pope Francis. And I'm going to show you and prove to you what they claim to be on this earth. So throughout this lesson, we're going to be jumping back and forth between Daniel and Revelation, and you're going to see with your own eyes the connection, and that this beast power is the same beast powers that it's talking about. It is the same time frame, the same location, by 2 different people, Daniel and John the Revelator, born thousands of years apart. Now I find that amazing, and that's one thing about the word of the Most High that's so amazing. It's repetitive. It repeats itself. It repeats events over and over, because the Most High is letting us know what's getting ready to come. He is letting us know that what we're dealing with in these last days, and it ain't nothing nice, brothers and sisters. It's about to get heated. Now let's deal with the 7 heads of this beast, which sits in Rome, which is talking about the papal power system, or as we know today as the Vatican. Now we read back in Revelation chapter 17 verse 9 where it says, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Now the woman, and as we're going to prove in the scripture, the woman is talking about the Roman Catholic Church. And if you look up the 7 hills of Rome, and you can do your own research on this, on the Vatican and where the Vatican sits, is literally 7 mountains or 7 hills. It is the only place, the only description that the Bible talks about in this verse. There's no other prophecy that fits this description. And we're going to further prove that to you through scriptures. All right, let's talk briefly about the 10 horns that were upon this beast, the 10 horns which had the 10 crowns. which represents the 10 kingdoms of Rome, and would later end up being 7 because 3 of those kingdoms were uprooted or they were destroyed because they went against the Roman Catholic Church. Now let's read Revelation chapter 17 and verse 12 again. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So this is talking about the 10 kingdoms of Rome, because at one time Rome was divided into 10 kingdoms. They were all controlled by the Vatican, which the Pope sat at the head. So they were all controlled by the Pope. This is some amazing stuff, brothers and sisters, and I would encourage you all to really study and research this, because any history teacher, major, would tell you that this is the truth. And the word of the Most High confirmed this. So there is no other place that fits this prophecy. This is referring to the 10 kingdoms of Rome. All right, let's go back to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. And brothers and sisters, I want you to bear with me, because I know we've been on verse 1 for a minute, but we have to cover these points, because if we don't, then the other verses in Revelation 13 will not make sense to you. So I guarantee you everything's going to start to make sense once we start going down the verses. Now we need to talk about one more thing here in verse 1, and that's the last part. It says, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Well, why is it that he has upon his head the name of blasphemy? Well, we got to ask ourselves the question, what is blasphemy? All right, let's get the quick definition of blasphemy. So it would be the act of depriving someone of its sacred character. In other words, someone who was claiming to be God on earth, or should I say the Vicar of God. Who is the only person on earth that claims that title? As a matter of fact, this person has that title on his crown when he wears it. It's a triple mitered crown that he wears, and it says the Vicar of God. That is total blasphemy, brothers and sisters. There is no other person that's on this earth that holds that title. That's why this prophecy is directly talking about the Pope, brothers and sisters, who happens to be the head of the Roman Catholic Church. And the head of the Roman Catholic Church sits right at the Vatican, which is located in Europe. Did you all know that we had approximately 266 popes from the rise of papal Rome all the way to this present pope we have now, which is Pope Francis? And all these 266 popes all sat in the same position, claiming to be the Vicar of Christ, meaning to be God on earth. Total blasphemy. Remember, we just read in Revelation 13:1 that his heads had, upon his head was the name of blasphemy. And when you compare that with Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5, where it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of all harlots and abominations of the earth. Well, why is she called the mother of harlots? Because she would be the mother of all the churches. Where do all the religions come from? Where do Christianity comes from? It comes from out of the Roman Catholic Church. All of it. And she would be the abominations of the earth. Now, on the note of abomination, did y'all know that the altar boys, what they used as altar boys at one time, were the priests' personal sluts? That's right, saints. They were their personal sluts. That's what they were used for. And pretty much they're still used as that today. They just slap the name altar boys on that to kind of keep it a hush-hush. But why do you think that these priests in these Roman Catholic Church, why do you think they have so many issues with molesting little boys? This has been going on for 2,000 years. This is nothing new. And no wonder the Most High calls her abomination, because she is the most wicked church on the face of the earth. And this man who calls himself a pope claims to be God on earth. And the word of the Most High is letting you know how corrupt this church is and who sits at the head. Let's go ahead and jump down to verse 2 of Revelation chapter 13. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. Now, I want you to pay close attention to what it's saying here, because it's talking about the 4 world empires. And I'm going to prove that to you here in a minute. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The head as a lion represents Babylon. The leopard represents Greece. The feet as the bear represents Medo-Persia. So let me prove that to you, and we're going to jump over to Daniel right quick. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7 and start with verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and beheld, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. There's that great sea again, representing multitudes, peoples, and tongues. Verse 3, and 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion. There's your first key right there. And had eagle's wings. And I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Verse 5, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. This bear is talking about the Medes and the Persians. They both ruled together, and they conquered a lot of other kingdoms. All right, let's go to verse 6. And after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given over it. And that was talking about the Greeks. Alexander had his kingdom divided up among 4 generals, and they ruled so fast, they conquered so quickly, and that's what the wings of being swift are. So there you have it, brothers and sisters. This is talking about the 4 world empires. And then verse 7 goes into the Roman Empire. So it's talking about the 4 world empires: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. And then it gets into Papal Rome, which is the Vatican. And that's where you have your 7 heads and your 10 horns and the 10 crowns. So I wanted to show that to you so you can see the comparison. It's talking about the same thing, brothers and sisters. It's one and the same. Now let's jump back to Revelation chapter 13 and read verse 2, but I'm going to read the last part of that verse. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Now this is talking about pagan Rome, because remember we talked about earlier the rise of Papal Rome, which came about through Constantine. So the church state religious rose up out of Papal Rome. But let me prove that to you, because we go to Revelation chapter 12 and verse 3. It's talking about the same beast power, brothers and sisters. Pay attention. Revelation 12 verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. And notice it says a great red dragon. This is talking about the Roman Empire. Now, this is a whole nother lesson, Revelation 12. We're going to, if y'all's willing, we'll do a lesson on this as well, too. But I just wanted to point this out to you. So, pagan Rome would give rise in authority to the rise of Papal Rome, which came about through Constantine. Okay, let's jump down to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And we're going to talk about one of his heads being wounded and what that was talking about. And actually, it was talking about the Pope would finally receive its deadly blow, but back in the 1920s, it received its power back by Mussolini, but we'll talk about that a little later. And then it says, and all the world wondered after the beast. Well, what does that mean? Well, what do people claim to be today? Religious, right? All your religions, Christianity, all came out through paganism. So that's why it says all the world wondered after the beast, because just about everybody and their grandmother goes to church on Sunday, the day of the sun. And this is worldwide. So Americans aren't the only people who go to church on Sunday. All around the world, people worship on Sunday, the day of the sun. Okay, let's jump down to verse 4. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. In other words, the Roman Empire gave its authority and power to the rise of papal Rome through Constantine. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So in other words, this beast power was so powerful that the whole world could not defeat it. I mean, it was like the number one head honcho for the whole world. So the beast with the 7 heads and with the 10 horns, with the heads like lions and the body like a leopard and the feet like a bear, are all the 4 world empires wrapped in one, not physically but spiritually, still practicing the pagan ways and continuing with the rise of papal Rome. All right, let's go back to Revelation chapter 13, and we're going to read verses 5 and 6. Now, here's where it's going to start getting interesting, because the word of the Most High is getting ready to give us a description of a title of a man and what this man is getting ready to do or is doing. So let's look at 5 and 6. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. So when we read that, it was a mouth given unto him speaking great things and blasphemy. The Most High is letting you know that this is a literal person. Let's continue. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Pay attention to that time frame, because it talks about the same time frame in Daniel chapter 7, and we're going to talk about that a little later. Verse 6. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Now get this, this is very interesting. When you pay attention to verse 6, it says, and he opened his mouth and blasphemed against Elohim. So what person on earth can open his mouth and blaspheme against Elohim? Well, it would have to be a person who holds the title or tries to put himself in the title of the Most High. That's how you blaspheme against the Most High. So read that part again. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. So who is the only religious figure on earth that puts himself in the place of the Most High? It is the Pope, who was over the Vatican. This is history, brothers and sisters. I'm not making none of this up, but don't let me tell it. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Let's talk about this same person, because the Most High is giving a description of the same person. All right, Daniel chapter 7 and verse 8. And this is Belshazzar. He's having this dream. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now let me read that last part again. In this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Brothers and sisters, we cannot get no clearer than this. The word of the Most High is specifically letting us know that this is a person who is going to be holding the title of the Most High, or claiming to be God on earth. There are no other religious figures in the world that fits this prophecy. The word of the Most High is letting us know that this is going to be a man who does this, the popes. All right, let's jump down to verse 20 and 21. It's going to give us a little more description of this horn. Verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell. Now, when it says whom 3 fell, it's talking about the 3 kingdoms that was uprooted by the Vatican. Even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Verse 21, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them. Now, in the last video I did with titled The Mother of All Harlots, the Inquisition was the order to set out to destroy those who went against the Roman Catholic Church. And a lot of our forefathers, Hebrew Israelites, were persecuted. Not only them, but there were many others who went against the Roman Catholic Church who were sought out and destroyed as well too. So that's when it says that this horn would make war with the saints. Now this horn was so powerful when the Pope received his title as Vicar of Christ, he was head over those 10 kingdoms. It was the church running those 10 kingdoms. All right, let's jump down to verse 24 of Daniel chapter 7. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So the word of the Most High is letting us know that these 10 horns are 10 kings, but this little smaller horn that rose up with the eyes like a man and the mouth speaking great things is the literal Pope, who would become the head title over all the other kingdoms, and he would uproot those 3 kingdoms that went against the Roman Catholic Church, destroy them, only leaving 7 kingdoms. So this is what this verse is talking about, and it's confirmed also in Revelation chapter 17. All right, I really want you to pay attention to the next verse, because this is going to be key. Verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. Remember that? We read that already in Revelation chapter 13. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think, get this, brothers and sisters, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and a dividing of time. Now, this is the same time frame as the 40 and 2 months that was talked about in Daniel chapter 13. Now, but let's go back to the very beginning of the verse. It says that he shall speak great words against the Most High. Now, we've proven from scriptures that the only person on earth that holds that title is the Pope. He claims to be God on earth. How does he speak against the Most High? By claiming to be in a position of the Most High. So we're going to talk about this time and times and the dividing of times, which comes out to 3.5 years, which is 1260 days. But I'm going to show you some scriptures to back that up, a day for a year for prophecy. But I just want to mention about where it says, and think to change times and laws. Well, what was one of the laws that the Roman Catholic Church changed, or the Pope changed? It was Sunday worship. They abolished the Sabbath. They took Sabbath and changed it to the day of the sun, because a lot of people in that region were already keeping the Sabbath, brothers and sisters, because remember, the work of the evangelist had spread all through that area. And so a lot of the saints were already keeping the Sabbath. And when the Pope came along, he changed that to worship on Sunday instead of Saturday. But we're going to talk more about that a little later on towards the end of the lesson. But for now, let's go ahead and go to the prophecy a day for a year, so I can show you in the Bible where that's coming from. So turn to Numbers 14:34, and it says, after the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. Now let's go to Ezekiel chapter 4 and verse 6. And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year. So these are the 2 precepts to prove or show you a day for a year prophecy. So when we're dealing in Revelation about, in Daniel, when it talks about Daniel 7, when it says a time, times, and a dividing of times, 3.5 years, and then it equals up to 1260 days, it's the same time frame spoken of in Revelation chapter 13, where it says 40 and 2 months. All right, so look at this diagram here. So I just wanted to show you, kind of give you a visual. So the 42 months that's spoken of in Revelation, and 3.5 years, or times, and the dividing of time that's spoken in Daniel chapter 7, are the same time periods. Now, this was during the Inquisition. Now, I want to make something clear. Now, I know a lot of our people fled into Africa, but not all of our people fled into Africa, brothers and sisters. They scattered all over. So yes, a lot of them were hunted down as well too during this time period. So I just wanted to show you that this 3.5 years, or time dividing of times, is the same as the 40 and 2 months. It's the same period, the 1260 days, which would be 1260 years, the time that the popes would rule and wreak havoc upon the saints by hunting them down like dogs. And remember, we just read in Ezekiel 4:6, the Most High says, I have appointed thee a day for a year. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 7. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And remember, Deuteronomy 4:27, our people were dispersed to the four corners of the earth. And this prophecy is twofold because, yes, the church persecuted our forefathers back then, and it's going to happen again in our time, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, when this stuff hits the fan and these heathens catch full wind of who we are, it's going to go down. Because in their minds, in order to stop the judgment of Elohim upon them, they have to kill us. That's what they think in their mind, but the Most High already has something planned for them. So their plan is getting ready to be spoiled, but they are going to try their best to try to get rid of us. So get ready, brothers and sisters, it's coming. Let's go to verse 8 of Revelation chapter 13. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So in other words, everybody who's taken part in spiritual Babylon, all this pagan worship, which are the world religions, Christianity, pagan holidays, and pagan worship itself, all stems from paganism. So people who are taking part in this, brothers and sisters, will not be written in the book of life. It won't. Because remember, the Most High says, come out of her, my people. This is what this battle is over. The Most High is waking his people up out of Christianity and these world religions, which consist of paganism. That's what the big fight is over right now. And that's what the battle is over. That's why it's so hard trying to witness to our family members, because they're so caught up in this religion. And the Most High did not give his people religion. He gave us laws, commandments, and statutes. There's a complete difference. Let's read verse 9 and 10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. Verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So it's going to be those of us, brothers and sisters, who endure to the end. And we already know that all these nations who had a part in our captivity, in our forefathers' captivity, they will be going into captivity themselves. Now, brothers and sisters, this is the big moment right here. This is a huge verse to really pay attention to. Verses 11 through 12 is talking about the rise of America. I'm going to prove it to you through scriptures, but I'm going to read everything through and then we're going to come back and break it all down. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Let's look at the first part of this verse, where it says another beast coming up out of the earth. Now I want you to take note here. Notice it says coming up out of the earth, but not the sea. Now we learned through Bible prophecy that sea represents peoples, nations, multitudes, and tongue. But here it's saying coming out of the earth, because when America was coming up, there wasn't a lot of people. You had people here in America. We know that your Taino Indians were dwelling on this land before the British and the Europeans came over and started to populate the area. And of course, our forefathers were brought over here as slaves through the Atlantic slave trade. But the way the America came up, it would come up from an unpopulated area. And that's why it's saying that it would come up out of the earth, because it wasn't like America was a worldwide empire. It wasn't. Not like Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. So it's different. So the only country that fits this description is the rise of America. Now there's a book out called The United States and the British Empire in Bible Prophecy. Check it out. But there's plenty of materials out there that proves and certifies that America fits this description. And the word of the Most High is letting us know what this country is. And no other country in the world fits this prophecy. Now let's talk about the two horns. It says that, and it had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now we know that a lamb is peaceful, right? So it's saying, it's describing this beast as a lamb-like beast with two horns. So in a sense, it would come up peacefully. Now, what do I mean by that? Because when people talk about the rise of America, we know that a lot of killing went on. We know a lot of Native Americans were killed over their land. Well, what I'm saying is that there was little resistance because America wasn't a worldwide empire. So it was easy for a lot of the other countries to come over and to establish their settings over here. So it would come up in a way where it would not be warlike, like Babylon was taken over by Medo-Persia and how Greece conquered the Medes. It wouldn't be nothing like that. It would come up in a very different way. And the two horns are represented in the political power, your Democrat and your Republican. And even unto this day, you have still the Republican and the Democrat parties that are constantly battling with one another. Look where it says speak as a dragon. Have y'all noticed the last 20 years, America has been speaking like a dragon? Been threatening sanctions on other countries that disagree with America. And you fast forward today, look at Trump. With Trump being in office, America is speaking like a dragon like never before. Is Trump not threatening to go to war with North Korea and other countries that don't agree with it? I'm telling y'all, brothers and sisters, this is talking about America to the T. It will speak like a dragon, and that's exactly what it's doing, speaking like a dragon. Okay, brothers and sisters, here's where it starts to get really interesting. Now let's go to the next part, and it says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. Now, before we recap a little bit on this first beast, let me ask you this. What is the biggest thing that America is big on? You guessed it. It's religion, which would be paganism. All the way back to the Roman Catholic Church. Roman Catholic Church came out of paganism, which stems all the way back to Nimrod. You see the connection here, brothers and sisters? This thing is very deep. The roots of paganism is so deep into our society, sometimes we don't even realize how deep it is. And this is where all this religion came from. So it would exercise all the powers of the first beast before him. So in other words, all these world religions, Christianity, the same practices that this first beast was doing, America is doing. And this is why I tell people that America itself is not Babylon, but America is part of Babylon, one of the main players. Just like the other countries are part of Babylon too, because paganism is worldwide, brothers and sisters. It's just not in America. People are just not going to church on Sundays in America. It's all over the world. Sun worship is prevalent everywhere. Okay, let's recap a little bit on this first beast. So we learned through scriptures that the beast with the 7 heads being the 7 hills or the 7 mountains on which the church sit. So on this map you have the Vatican, and then you have your 7 hills, which are depicted in the 7 heads of this beast. And the reason why I'm saying 7 heads, because it's giving you the location of where this place is. And we know that the Vatican power would be the main place that would sit right there at these 7 mountains or these 7 hills. Now the 10 crowns and the 10 horns are represented by the 10 kingdoms of Rome, because it was divided into 10 kingdoms. And so which was controlled by the political Vatican, which we would call Papal Rome today, which is the religious state church. And the Pope was like the emperor. So think of it this way. When you had pagan Rome, you had your regular emperors from Julius Caesar all the way to Tiberius. Then when Constantine came on the scene, he gave rise to the Papal Rome. The popes rose, and then the popes served as the as the emperors of Rome. So they controlled all of Rome. It was given to the church to control. And I'm not making any of this stuff up, brothers and sisters. You can do the research for yourself. I've had people come on my comments and say, man, I researched this and it's exactly right, on point. So it's in the history books. It's out there. And the Most High made it available for us to do our research. We just have to dig and do our research. You know, there's an old saying that if you want to hide something from a black person, you put it in a book. And brothers and sisters, we have history out there. We just got to get out and read it and research it for ourselves. All right, back at verse 12, the last part. Now look where it says, and cause it the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. Here it is again, brothers and sisters. Worship is all about worship. Worship the first beast. How? By keeping paganism, religion, Christianity, pagan holidays, whose deadly wound was healed. Now, what does it mean when it says whose deadly wound was healed? Now, let me give you the history of the downfall of the popes and the rise of the popes. So it would come the fulfillment of the deadly wound that took place when in 1798, General Berthier, at the head of the French army, entered Rome, and he declared the end of the political rule of the papacy, and he took the Pope captive to France. So later the Pope died. So that's what ended the Vatican temporarily. So it wouldn't be until like around 1929 when Mussolini would acknowledge the Vatican once again as the supreme head church, and the Vatican will once again receive its power. And until this very same day, brother and sister, the Vatican is more powerful than ever, with world influences all over the world. And I don't know if y'all remember Pope John Paul, but he was very instrumental in the rising of really bringing all the world religions together and making the Vatican even more powerful. Well, how come you don't hear about the Vatican today? Well, it's because, brothers and sisters, they don't want you to know this information. They don't want you to know how powerful the Vatican is. But the word of the Most High is telling us what's getting ready to take place in these last days. So here we have America, who is giving power to this first beast, giving acknowledgement. And this first beast would be the power of the Vatican, where its location is. Now, do y'all remember when President Obama was in office? Remember when Pope Francis came and spoke before the Senate? Now, that was the first time ever, and that was huge. That was the biggest thing in history, historical level of all times. They've never, ever had a pope that came to speak before a Senate. And right then and there, that tells you how the United States will give power unto the image of this beast. This Vatican will acknowledge all this world religion and its power. When the Pope comes to America, or when he goes all over the world, you look and see how many people are bowing down to him. You know, this man has mad respect because he's considered the vicar of Christ. He's considered to be the God on earth. So all the presidents have to bow down and worship this guy. They have to pay homage to him. So, I mean, just do your research on these popes. You know, watch how research how powerful they are and the influence they have over the whole world. So it would be this deadly wound which was healed. So in other words, the Vatican would be reinstated and the popes would be recognized as the vicar of Christ, God on earth, by the whole world. All right, let's look at Revelation 13 and verse 13. And it says, and it's talking about the U.S. still, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Now, how many of y'all think y'all know what this is talking about, brothers and sisters? Well, I'm going to show you. What is the only event when the United States made fire come down from heaven? Do y'all remember the 2 bombs that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Those are the most 2 powerful atomic bombs ever. Now, fast forward 75 years and some change, we have atomic bombs, nuclear bombs that are 10 times thousands of more powerful than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm telling you. So they were able to make fire come down from heaven. This is what this is talking about. So no other country has dropped a nuclear bomb on anyone, brothers and sisters. America was the only one who did that. And I find that very amazing. And when you look at America, America has the most advanced military and weaponry in the world. Now, Russia, on the other hand, and China today are pretty much caught up with the United States as far as weapons is concerned. You know, they have just as many nuclear bombs as the U.S. does. So, you know, that's why this war is going to be such a catastrophic event when it happens. So when the Most High gathers them and starts turning these nations against one another, it's going to be hell on earth, brothers and sisters. It ain't going to be no joke. All right, let's look at verse 14. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And we already explained that through scriptures, that what that meant by when it says had the wound by a sword and did live, because the Pope was taken captured and the Vatican was pretty much shut down. And then in 1929, it received its power back again. All right, brothers and sisters, let's look at the very last part of verse 14, because I want to share something with you that's going to blow your mind. It says, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. Now, some of our brothers read this where it says, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast. Do you know that 90% of Hebrews have no idea what this is talking about? When it says make an image to the beast, they think it's talking about a chip because that's what the heathens teach, brothers and sisters. But I'm going to prove to you from scriptures that this is not talking about that. This is talking about something more sinister. Now, let me ask you a question. What is the number one day that everybody in America goes to church on? It is Sunday, sun worship. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of the Sunday blue laws? I guaranteed you 90% of you Hebrews that are watching this video probably even never heard of the Sunday blue laws. Probably don't even know what it is. This is what I want to challenge you to do. Get yourself, your family members, your kids, your children, and you get in front of a computer and research and type in Sunday blue laws. I want you to do your research on that. This is the homework I want to give you guys. I'm telling you, please research this for yourself. Type in Sunday blue laws, and we're going to talk about that in the next verse. Now, before we go over to verse 15 of Revelation chapter 13, let's talk a little bit more about this Sunday blue laws for those of you who don't know what this even is. Now, did you know that there was a time in America, especially back in the 1930s, even before that, up until a certain time, where if you were caught cutting your grass on a Sunday or doing any kind of physical labor on a Sunday, you were fined or either put in jail. Yes, brothers and sisters, it's that serious. So the Sunday blue laws are on all the books, on all 50 states. They are partially enforced. So what do I mean when I say that the Sunday blue laws are partially enforced in the United States? Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Now, everywhere in the United States, do you notice that on Sundays, certain businesses are closed or certain businesses don't open up until noontime, especially your malls. Your malls don't open up until around 12 noon on Sundays. There's a reason for that. It's because of the Sunday blue laws. Now, these Sunday blue laws haven't been fully enforced yet, but it's getting ready to. It's going to come a time, brothers and sisters, where they're going to enforce this thing fully, and you're going to have to abide by every rule of it. Now, I lived in Germany for about a year, and for those of you who lived in Europe or Germany or wherever in Europe, you know exactly where I'm about to go with this. Now, in Europe, everything shuts down on Sundays. Did y'all know that, saints? Everything. Well, maybe with the exception of a few gas stations, but all your stores, your malls, your businesses, they don't play that in Europe. Everything shuts down, brothers and sisters, in Europe on a Sunday. And it's always been that way for the last 2,000 years. It hasn't changed. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of Hebrews don't realize that. But for those who are living in Europe, you know that everything shuts down on a Sunday. This tells you how sacred this pagan sun god is to these heathens. And it's so important that they would make a law to enforce it. So it's going to come a time, and I would encourage you to read the book of Maccabees, First Maccabees, chapters 1 through 9. You know, there was a decree that came out from the Greeks that our forefathers could not practice their heritage. They had to cease what they were doing. And it's going to come a time again, brothers and sisters, where we're going to have to cease our heritage, and we're going to have to bow down to this image. And by not bowing down to this image, not accepting this Sunday law or this image to the beast, as the word of the Most High is calling it, yes, then we will not be able to buy and sell. We're going to be cut off from society because we simply refuse to go along with the image to the beast, which is Sunday worship. The day of the sun god Tammuz, which goes all the way back to Nimrod. Paganism, brothers and sisters. And we're going to be killed because we refuse to acknowledge it. Now, what is the mark of the Most High? It is Sabbath. The Sabbath, the sacred Sabbath, 7th day of the week, the weekly cycle, is the Most High's holy mark. And see, this is the thing. For everything that the Most High has truth for, Satan has a counterfeit. And you can believe that, brothers and sisters. So they're going to try their best to enforce this law fully. We don't know when, but it's coming. And they're going to cause everybody to worship this image to the beast, which is Sunday worship. But here's the thing, brothers and sisters. They don't really have to force too many people because guess what? The whole world is pretty much worshiping on Sundays. Am I right or wrong? Y'all tell me that. The only people that are going against this image to the beast, which is Sunday worship, is Yah's chosen people. Now, we know the Muslims, they don't worship on Sunday. They do their thing, but they're going to be easy. Islam is going to pretty much be destroyed because it was created by the Roman Catholic Church anyway. So, and Islam is just a pawn being used by the ones who are really in power. So, we know that's coming to an end. But the focus is going to be on us. That's what the focus is going to be on. It's going to be on Yah's chosen people because they will try to destroy us. And they're going to use their laws to try to make us conform to their wicked paganism. All right, let's go ahead and read verse 15 of Revelation chapter 13. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Pay attention closely. Key word, worship, brothers and sisters. It's all about worship. Let me read that again. As would not worship. Let me read it one more time. As many as would not worship. As many as would not worship. Worship. I can't stress that enough. It's about worship. Sunday worship. The image to the beast should be killed. So in other words, those of us who goes against their wishes, we're going to be cut off from society. But this ain't going to last that long because the Most High is going to come and intervene. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, this thing is getting ready to get heated. And as we're seeing more destruction increase on a daily basis, the pressure is going to hit these heathens so hard, they're going to be passing laws left and right. And I already told you, they already got hate laws in place for us. It's directed directly towards us. So we got to get ready. That's why we got to get into these laws, commandments, and statutes the best way we can. Afflict our souls on a daily basis. We got to continue to die daily. Work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. All right, let's go with a verse 16 and 17. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. Now let's stop right there for a minute. He calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. That's everybody, brothers and sisters. Everybody is taking part in some kind of worship, whether you worshiping the Most High Yah and His laws, commandments, and statutes, or whether you're worshiping this image or the Vatican, the world religions, Christianity, which all comes from that. And here's what trips a lot of our Hebrews, I'm not going to say a lot of them, but some of our Hebrews up, because this is what the heathens are teaching. It says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now they read that and they'll try to implant. Well, this is talking about a chip. This is talking about a RFID chip. Now, the Bible is not talking about that, brothers and sisters, because we read in the previous verse that it says that as many as would not worship. It's about worship. The image, the beast, is Sunday worship. And we talked about these Sunday blue laws. Go look them up. The Sunday blue laws are on all the books of 50 states, and they're only partially enforced. But once they fully enforce, brothers and sisters, when this martial law comes out and when things hit the fan, it's going to happen rapidly. So people read this where it says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. They're literally thinking that it's going to be some kind of chip in their forehead or their right hand. This is talking about your actions, brothers and sisters, your action and your participation. And go look up all the words dealing with hands and foreheads in the Bible, and it's always referring to actions participating in spiritual matters. Now, for you hardcore Hebrews, diehard RFID chip fans, if you really believe in your mind that this is a chip, then don't let them put anything in your right hand or your forehead. It's simple as that. You know, the Most High, if you're keeping the laws and commandments and statutes the best way you can, you're not going to have to worry about this, brothers and sisters, because we're not taking part of the image of the beast. We're not worshiping on Sunday. We're not taking part in these pagan holidays. We're not taking part in these world religions. That's the heathens' thing. Our thing is the laws, commandments, and statutes of the Most High. All right, let's look at verse 17. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, we're going to learn more about this number in the next verse, because it says that it's going to be a number of a man. The Most High is telling you that it's going to be a number of a man in the next verse. So yes, brothers and sisters, if we do not accept Sunday worship or any of the Babylonian kingdom spiritual pagan worships, which consist of Christianity, world religions, pagan holidays, to include Sunday worship, because that's the day that everybody goes to church, on the day of the sun, Tammuz. If we don't participate in those things, brothers and sisters, we're going to be cut off. And I said earlier, there's going to come a time where we're going to be forced to stop practicing our heritage. We're going to have to denounce who we are. We're going to have to proclaim that we were just making all this up, and we're going to have to go along with the Babylonian system. That's why a lot of us are going to be persecuted. So I'm telling you, this thing is no joke, and it's going to get heated to the point where we're going to have to make a decision. And this is why we need to be consecrating our souls right now, so we can be strong. And I always like to bring up the parable of the sower. Remember, we want to be that seed that is planted on solid rock, where we have deep root, so that when time of trouble comes, when it increases, we will, we may sway a little bit, but we would not fall, and we would be so enrooted in Yehoshua that nothing would be able to break us, brothers and sisters. So that's where we want to be at. All right, brothers and sisters, let's go ahead and jump to the very last verse, because this very last verse is going to be key. Because when some of our brothers read this, they think that this 666 is talking about the RFID chip, but it's not talking about that. I'm going to show you who it's talking about. And by now, you should already know who it's talking about. It says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. Count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man." The word of the Most High cannot be no clearer than this, brothers and sisters. It is telling you, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, which is 666. It's telling us that it is the number of a man. Now, I showed you a picture of the triple metal crown the Pope wears when they do their dedication, or when they are elected as a Pope. They wear this crown, and on special occasions they wear this crown, where it's titled the Vicar of the Son of God, which reads in Latin, Vicarius Filii Dei. And if you add those numbers up in the Roman numerals, it comes out to 666. Now that is amazing, brothers and sisters. Now there are other things that you can probably add up, and it's going to come out to 666. But we got to remember In Revelation 13, it is specifically talking about the Pope, who is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. So you cannot use something else to add up 666. You have to apply prophecy to whom prophecy applies to. And in this setting, this prophecy in Revelation 13, as well as Revelation 17, is applying to the head of the Roman Catholic Church, which is the Pope, who claims to be God on earth. As we read right here, the Vicar of the Son of God. So when you add Vicarious Filii Dei, it all comes out to 666. And that's why the word of the Most High says it is the number of a man. Do your research, brothers and sisters. Don't get so caught up in what the heathens are teaching, because they're teaching all kind of stuff. The Bible says in Jeremiah 10:2, learn not the way of the heathens. So let's go with this verse again. Revelation 13:18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That's the clue right there. That's the key word, brothers and sisters. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. But you got some Hebrews that are teaching that this 666 is a chip. The Bible is not teaching that, because it tells you that 666 is the number of a man. Let's take another look at it again. The triple mitre crown that the Pope wears. If you add these numbers up in Latin, Vicarious Filii Dei, it comes out to 666. And this is the number that the Pope wears. That's why the Most High is saying that is the number of a man. So let's read this verse one more time. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Brothers and sisters, I challenge you to do your research on this and go out and study this stuff for yourselves. Don't just watch the video and then turn it off and then you just taking my word for it. Go and research it for yourselves. That's all I ask. Now, did y'all know that there's another aspect of 666 that's going to destroy this Babylonian system? You want to know what that is? It's called the sixth seal, the sixth trumpet, and the sixth veil, which all deals with destruction and the War III that is coming upon this earth. That's right. It's all coming to an end, brothers and sisters. And these heathens have no idea what's getting ready to hit them. So yeah, they're going to try hard to do all in their power to enforce these laws. And this Sunday law is coming. It's already on the books. The laws are pretty much already here, brothers and sisters. It's already enforced. It's just not fully enforced. And it would take a catastrophic event to enforce these laws. So we better get ready, because the day and gloom is coming. It's right upon us. And I know a lot of us are praying that this thing come upon us very quick. But brothers and sisters, some of us better be careful, because if we're caught worshiping in this Babylonian system, then brothers and sisters, you're not going to be on the right side. You're going to be on the side of death. And that's why we got to constantly warn our people to come out of Babylon. And I know it hurts like crazy. And yeah, they're going to throw stones at you. They're going to be kicking and scratching and cursing and all kind of things. But we just got to keep warning them, brothers and sisters, because one day some of them may wake up. But unfortunately, we know that 2/3 of our people are not going to come out of Babylon. They're going to refuse. They love their pagan worship. They love their sun worship. They love their church. They love their religion. They love their Christianity. They love their pagan holidays. Sometimes you just got to step back and leave them alone. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, I really pray that you were edified in this lesson. And if you didn't understand it, please go back through the lesson and watch. But I would really encourage you to watch the lesson on the mother of harlots, because that'll really give you the basic understanding of this beast Babylonian system power. So, but again, like I always say, it's an honor to serve my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters scattered to the four corners of the earth. And I pray for you all day and night. And with that being said, I'm going to leave you with Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yehoshua. So let us make haste to keep these laws, brothers and sisters. And I say shalom, and stay strong.